Welcome to this DaVinci Resolve Fusion node breakdown. Today's node is the vector warp node. Now I know I've gone over the vector warp node in a short little, not tutorial, but kind of a highlighted the new stuff in Fusion 20, but we didn't actually do a node breakdown of the vector warp and its associated nodes. So that's what we're doing today. So we're going to jump into Fusion, and I've got some media, and we're going to go ahead and build our little setup here for using the vector warp node. And as a reminder, these nodes are 1, studio only, and 2, pretty intensive on your GPU. So we want to put up our little crop box, so we are cropping only what we need to warp. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a crop node. And let's go ahead and bring our footage in. And on our crop node, I'm going to select our little box, and I'm just going to select her face here because that's all I really care about. Let's just cruise through, make sure it kind of stays in, and it doesn't. Let's go ahead and change that. Let's change our offset. So there we go. We've got her in our little box. And I'm going to go ahead and copy this node. Paste it. Let's input that, and on this crop I am going to bring this back to our original size of our media, which was 3840 by 2160. So 3840 by 2160. And up here for our offsets, I'm just going to reverse them. So minus and minus, and if you had negative numbers up here, you just make them positive. So now our little footage is back where it's supposed to be. And to make sure that is correct, let's go ahead and add a merge node. Bring our original footage in, our crop in. Let's look at that, and we can always just throw brightness contrast in there and change it and make sure our footage stays in there correctly. So we are good. So between these two nodes, this is where we want to do all of our intensive stuff. That way we have less pixels to work with. So the vector warp node needs vector data. So if we were to bring in a vector warp node and input it, and we look at our channels, you can see we have no vector data. So in order to get vector data in here, we need an optical flow. So after our crop node, I'm going to add an optical flow. And if we look at our optical flow node, now we have a vectors. So we've got our vector X and Y and our back vectors X and Y. So we have vector information. If we go to our vector warp channels, now we have UV coordinates, because that's what this node is actually doing. It's using that vector data to apply UVs to the node. So anytime you're working with your vector warp node, the first thing you want to do is make sure you're setting your keyframes correctly. So we want to find a keyframe where our face is nice and still so we can do anything we need. And if we need to paint, if we need to export this to Photoshop and add stuff, we can. So I'm going to go ahead and just use the first frame as our reference frame. So that's what this reference frame is for. If I wanted 48 to be my reference frame, I would just set that frame as my reference frame, and it's going to warp everything around that frame. But I want frame 0 to be my reference frame, so I'm going to set that. So on our warp node, we have 4 operations. We have generate warp, warp plus map, apply warp map, and unwarp. So the generate warp is simply taking this vector data and generating a warp. So now we've got warp data coming out of here, but we still can't quite use anything yet. So we're not able to input any data in here to create anything. We just have that warp data. Now, if I selected generate warp plus map, now I'm able to use this input to input an image or media or anything I want to input in here to apply to that warp. So if I grab some, say, media, like this little tattoo thing, and input it, now we've got that input over her face. And if I was to push play, it would warp with her face. And I could bring in a transform node and resize it if I wanted to. And change the location and put it where I wanted. And this would now warp with her face. Which for some cases might be good enough, but it's really not the real workflow you want to use with just a single warp node. So let's go ahead and disconnect this. Now our other options on our operation are apply warp map and unwarp. But I'm going to skip this apply warp map because we should be unwarping first. So I'm going to select unwarp. So now if I look at our vector warp node, you can see her face as being unwarped and it's nice and still, ready for us to apply any effects or anything we need to do. And if you notice, her mouth is staying closed. And this allows us to do any paint, anything on that still unwarped image based off of our reference frame. And also on the warp node, we have this region, so we can change our center if we need to. Here we can change the size on the X and the Y. I'm going to go ahead and leave that. So to be able to use this data, we would need another warp node. So I'm going to add another vector warp. And on this one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select apply warp map. So what that's going to do is it's going to apply any warps from this to anything we bring in. So if I connect our tattoo now, and I look at this, our tattoo is there. And now we're getting a much better warp off that tattoo. And again, we can apply a transform and we can change the size. And now it'll be warped to her face. But you notice we're not seeing any movement in her face, and that's because on our warp node, we have this checkbox that says merge warp over background. So if we uncheck this, now we're only going to get that texture. So if I play, it's only our texture coming out. And if I go to our merge node and we look at our actual merge, we can see that texture being applied to our warp node and then to our vector warp node with that texture. And under operations, this generate warp plus map will also work, but just know you're regenerating a warp when you do that. So we're adding additional warps that we've already done on this node to this node. So you may have some weird artifacts that happen, and sometimes it may work better, sometimes it may work worse. So if you bounce back and forth between this generate warp plus map and this apply warp map, you may get different results. So if we go back here, you can see right here, we're getting some weird stuff on our nose. And if I hit generate warp, that goes away. But other areas may be better if I use this apply warp instead. And as far as our media we bring in, we can use anything. If we wanted to bring a paint node in to paint, to change anything, to add makeup. So we could even add video if you want, different stuff. So let's give her some creepy eyes maybe. So let's go ahead and bring some other footage in. So we've got this footage. Let's go ahead and use these eyes. So I'm going to add a resize node to get it up there to the correct aspect ratio. And then I'm going to add a merge. I'm going to bring this into our foreground and I'm going to bring in a background. Just that way I can make it a little opaque and see what I'm doing. So I'm going to go to our background, drop the alpha, go to our merge, blend it a little bit. And I'm going to Add an ellipse. I know I'm going to need that. And I know I'm going to need a transform node. And from this transform node, I'm going to plug it into our warp. And if I look at our merge on our warp, I can see we've got our little eyes in there. So what I could do is, first let's go ahead and change this aspect ratio up. Change our scale. Let's get our eyes where they belong. And let's go ahead and play with our ellipse here. And we'll flip our merge back to be 100%. And there we go. We've got some weird, creepy eyes on her now. Using the warp nodes to add additional stuff to her. So that is the vector warp node. I will see you in the next node breakdown.